This is going to be a video on how to process word lists in SuperMemo. Now, just to note, I personally would not recommend doing this if you're learning independently. I think there are much better methods out there. But if you're stuck learning a language for a class, then I think that this workflow is pretty good for memorizing all that vocab you get thrown at you. So to start, I'm just going to make a new topic. And I'll just write down all the shortcuts I'm using here, and I'll put them in the description too, so that people can also use them. So this just pastes clipboard to new topic. And now I have this new topic here with my word list. And in this case, you don't need it, but another shortcut I would recommend is ctrl+F12, which basically just clears formatting. So in this case, the formatting is already fine, so I don't need to use it. But in some cases, when you're copying it from other sources, the formatting might be terrible. So yeah, now I have this word list, and I basically want to make cards for all of these words. And where do you start? So there's a couple ways to do this. My personal recommendation is just to make extracts. So like this. And the shortcut I'm using here is alt+x. So this makes an extract. And it basically just makes these subtopics, which is just these pieces that I've been highlighting and then extracting. Oops. I wouldn't recommend making all the extracts at once. Personally, what I used to do when I was learning Japanese for class is I would go through a bunch of words in batches. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I'll just add one more, make it even. Okay. And the next step would be to start making cards from these word pairs, but there are two considerations you can make here. So the first is, for those of you that don't know what a cloze deletion is, a cloze deletion is basically, let's say that I have this and I use the shortcut alt+z. It'll generate a very simple card that looks like this, where the thing I highlighted and pressed alt+z on, it just gets hidden. So yeah, now what do we want to make the cloze deletion on? So we can make it on the English word here, or we can make it on the Japanese. So the question is, do you want to do English to Japanese? So question is in English and answer is in Japanese. Or do you want to do question is in Japanese and then answer is in English? Now, if you do English to Japanese, it's going to be harder than Japanese to English. So Japanese to English is just passive understanding, while English to Japanese requires more recall of the word. My personal recommendation is that you start with Japanese to English, or basically your target language to your native language, and then later on you swap, and then you do the other way around. So you force yourself to recall the foreign language. So the way that would work in practice here is that I would make a cloze deletion on sushi. And now I have a simple card where I just have to recall what the English is. And then with SuperMemo, you can basically schedule it such that you'll see this text again. And maybe I want to, 10 days from now, I want to look at this topic again. And then whenever I'm comfortable enough with understanding sushi, the Japanese part, then I can make a second cloze deletion that forces me to recall what sushi in Japanese is. This is a bit of a poor example since sushi in Japanese is just sushi. But yeah. And another consideration to be made at this stage as well is if you want to add images, it's a little bit annoying to make the cloze deletion, add the image, and then you make the second card and then you add the image there again. So I think it's easier to make the image up front. So to do that, you can use ctrl+F3. And the way that works is if I do ctrl+F3, then I search for this text. Then I can search on Google Images, and it'll basically show me a bunch of options. So let's say that I want to add this to illustrate my card. I can just do copy. Whoops. Yeah, and then I can go back to SuperMemo, do Ctrl+V, and then say yes, and yes. And it'll just have this new card here where if I make another card and then I do a repetition, it'll look like this. So I'll have the picture of the key. So generally though, it's better to have the image on the back so that it doesn't give away too much. So now if I do Alt+Shift+L, then or if I do like an actual repetition, then it's not going to show the image. It'll just show it whenever I'm doing the answering part. Though something I would consider is if it's English to Japanese, you can completely replace the English with just an image. And I think that then in that case, it's reasonable to show the image on the front and then expect yourself to recall the Japanese. So basically in that manner, what I would roughly do is I would look at the card, I would use ctrl+F3, and I would go to Google Images, and I would find something I can add in here. And next I would make first the passive card, and I would use ctrl+j, modify interval. And then, like, when I see it next, I can make this second cloze deletion. And I would do this process across all the cards. But like in my first batch, I would just make more cards like this. Do it pretty fast. Though I'm just skipping the adding the image part just to save a bit of time. Though I do recommend it because it makes repetitions a lot less boring when there's like an image there instead of just dry text. And so now I've made around 11 cards, including these extra ones here. And now from so now I could just like leave it, and maybe tomorrow I can do my repetitions. But if I want to make sure that these new words are consolidated well, then there's something else in SuperMemo you can use called final drill. So if I go to Learn, Stages, Final Drill, basically it'll start in this mode where you're basically just, as the name suggests, just drilling in these new cards. And what you'll notice is that if I rate it a 3, then the final drill count doesn't go down. So it'll just keep showing me those same words until I rate it a 4. Whoops. Or a 5. Yeah. And then as I do that, then you can see that the count is going down as I clear more of the cards. So final drill is really useful for a lot of these new cards where you just have no memory of them at all, and you need to do the initial encoding of the memory. And after that, in future repetitions, then it should start off a bit less rough. If you just make 10 cards and then you just do the first repetitions tomorrow and you don't spend the time drilling them, you'll have a pretty rough time of it, and your retention rate will probably be kind of bad. But yeah, so this is overall how I would approach a word list in SuperMemo. I would just repeat the same process I showed here and just do it for the rest of these cards as well. So it might take a bit more time up front doing these extracts and then adding images and stuff, but long term it'll help and it'll make things a lot less painful. So yeah, thanks for watching.